Hello, everyone, and welcome to our mCLASS customer panel webinar. My name is Shannon Ramlochin, and I'm a marketing manager here at Amplify. Thank you all for joining, and I'm so excited for you to learn from our panel of educators today who are using Amplify's early literacy programs to make the shift from balanced literacy to the science of reading and implement multi-tiered systems of support to help their students become successful readers. Just to go over a few housekeeping notes, today's webinar will be recorded and we'll email out the recording link for you to rewatch as you'd like. And everyone here with us today will also receive a certificate of attendance. We also have a live captioner with us. So if you want to access the captions, click on live transcript in the bottom tray. And throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please send them in the Q&A and we'll do our best to get to them at the end. And we welcome comments in the chat. And to start, let's find out where everyone is joining us from today and what your role in education is.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're excited to hear where you're from and your roles. Thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are.
Awesome. I'm seeing folks from New York, Pennsylvania, California, Ohio, Massachusetts, Indiana.
Oh, I love the Happy Friday Eve. Like, let's cheer that one.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, we can get started, and I am pleased to welcome our panel moderators today, Dr. Karen Venditti and Sarah McCarty. Karen is a former educator and currently serves as a senior curriculum specialist here at Amplify. And in her role, Karen partners with teachers, leaders, and students around the globe to implement comprehensive literacy system solutions. And Sarah is our Director of Literacy and Math at Amplify. Sarah is also a former educator, and she's still teaching elementary students literacy, just in the world of tutoring now. So welcome, Karen and Sarah.
Thank you, Shannon. We're excited to be here with you today, and we're excited with our partner educators. And so let's introduce them. They are really the stars of the show today for our time together.
And so, Sarah, I feel like I have to chime in too, because Sarah and I are both from Indiana. And today, so two Indiana girls are going to be talking with two Tennessee girls on the call today. So I'm really excited about that kind of different twist we have today. So we've got Dr. Penny Thompson from Lebanon, Tennessee, and Sandra Paschall from Paris, Tennessee. And we're going to let them share a little bit about their backgrounds and what their roles and how that relates to what they're doing right now. So Penny, why don't we start with you?
Okay, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you guys today. I work for the Lebanon Special School District in Lebanon, Tennessee, which is located just outside Nashville. And I've been an instructional coordinator and pre-K director with this district for 19 years, a total of 31 years in this district, because prior I was a teacher and an administrator in the schools, elementary schools. But my task now is leading the district with literacy, and we have made a lot of progress in that area and growing in reading and writing literacy. And we do use CKLA and have had success with that. So I'm excited to share with that today.
Great, thanks. And Sandra?
I'm Sandra Paschall, and I'm also excited to be here today. I love all things Amplify, so this was a real honor to be asked to participate today. I taught in Henry County schools for 16 years, and I came to Paris Special as an assistant principal, and then I became a principal, And then I've been in this position for 4 years. So it's a total of 26 years for me. And we love CKLA. This is only our second year to use it. And so we don't have a great deal of data, but we do know that kids are in a better place than where they were before, even with the COVID gaps. So that was really exciting. I can't even imagine what instruction would have looked like if we had not had this strong curriculum. So I'm excited to share today.
And we are definitely excited to have you both here to share, because Sarah and I know a little bit about your stories. And I think our attendees today are going to benefit so much. And it's not just about the CKLA or mCLASS, as we're here to hear a lot about those products, but it's really about your journeys as well. And I think thinking about the journey is just as important, and how you got to where you are as you're moving forward. And so we kind of jumped back a little slide. We're moving back and forth here today because we have a question for you, Sarah.
Yeah, and so let's talk about this. We would love for you to share your role. We know where you're coming from, but we also want to know, what is this device? If you've used this device and you know what this is, do share with us today what this device is in the chat.
And there's a reason we have this image on the screen. Some of you might know that reason, and you probably jumped right out and said, oh, I know what that is. And I know why.
Blackberry, someone said, oh, and we have literacy coaches. And oh, Rachel, way to go. Rachel was the first responder. Rachel, that is what we're going to call a prize-worthy response today. Woo! And so you are the winner. And if you'll notice, Karen and I are wearing our I Love Science of Reading t-shirts. And so Shannon will connect with you privately, and we will be sending you a I Love the Science of Reading t-shirt. So yes, you've been in education for a while if you know what that is. That was the Palm Pilot, in which the mCLASS platform was originally started on, I'm just going to say back in the day.
Exactly, Sarah. Thanks for sharing that and sharing those responses. We really love to see the participants share questions, share responses, share ideas that you have related to what our wonderful educators are going to talk to you about today. And one of the reasons that we want to share the complete literacy system is because they're going to talk about some pieces that you may not be familiar with. So we want you to have a little bit of a context for that, because Amplify, as many of you are aware, as many of you are already using, it's important to have pieces that work together. Whether it's a personalized learning platform or a core curriculum, the assessment, your universal screening, intervention, whatever you're doing, the more aligned your system is, the more you're going to get in terms of instructional best practices for your students and moving them forward. And so with Amplify's complete literacy system, we're here today to talk about mCLASS, and I know that's why many of you are attending. We also, though, are going to hear about Amplify CKLA, which is our core curriculum, and Amplify Reading, which is a personalized practice application, a supplemental program that works with CKLA. The data from mCLASS drives that instruction. And so we wanted you to be aware when Sandra and Penny talk about some of these pieces, how they work together, because they do work as a system. And so as you see that system working together, you've got your assessment helping you drive the instruction and that personalized learning, as well as intervention. And you will hear about those pieces today. Mm-hmm. But I know Sarah,
Awesome. So I also want to share, like, if you joined us for our other fall series on the science of reading is for everyone, we've heard from many educators, whether they be panelists on those other sessions or through the chat, and you may just find yourself where others have found themselves in this journey. Like one educator shared earlier this week, hey, our school, we just got a science of reading curriculum, but we need to make the shift in assessment. How can I talk to my leaders about that, right? You may only have that beginning step. Karen, I see you shaking your head. Like, we work with educators. You're not alone. It takes time, and you're going to hear that from Sandra and Penny. And so basically this image on the left is very similar to, if you think about MTSS, which I'm sure MTSS will come up today, but you're looking for a proactive and preventative curriculum, and Amplify has that with CKLA. You're looking for that personalized learning experience so that the learning for your students is consistent. Whether in that Amplify Reading personalized learning journey, they are doing online and enriched, whether it be additional grade level practice, because that's where the student is, or whether they need that remediation. While the teacher is using an intervention such as mCLASS intervention, doing that direct instruction, the teacher can rest assured that the students are getting the consistent and appropriate learning that they need through Amplify Reading. And through all this, when we think about MTSS, we think about data-based decisions at the heart of it all. Whether it's database decisions that are driving as leaders what we're doing with our core, how we're providing additional support. So I don't want to spend much time. I want to turn that over to Penny and Sandra to talk about that. But we do offer those here at Amplify. And I think just to start, like, we'd love to hear from you as well. I saw some folks saying DIBELS earlier in the chat. Like, what is your familiarity? 10, I've been using DIBELS in one way or the other, like paper pencil. Karen and I work with a lot of paper pencil educators that know DIBELS, 8th edition. We also work with those who are using mCLASS with DIBELS, and they might be experts at a 10. Jennifer, she's an expert, she's a 10. Or I'm a 5, or we just learned about DIBELS this year and we're starting off in a year 1 implementation, and I might be a 2 or a 3. Yep, Amber's that year 1 educator. We're here to support you, and you're gonna get a lot of good information today.
Well, and you're going to hear from Penny, and maybe that's where we start. When Penny, they've used DIBELS in a paper pencil version for a long, I won't age her, but for a long time. And so maybe as we start this conversation, Penny, thinking about the science-based instruction in the literacy system and how that has impacted your district, and maybe talking about the pieces that you used in that journey. We'll hear from both of our participants about the journey that got them to where they are. So we'll start with you, Penny.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that was my first assignment, actually, when I took this position back in 2004, was to check into DIBELS and that assessment and how it could help our system. So we were up and running in 2005 with the DIBELS, using DIBELS, and paper pencil, of course. So we've come a long way in that we moved to DIBELS Next, and now we're using DIBELS 8th edition. And our journey has been good with DIBELS, but we also needed a high quality curriculum to go with that. And so I really feel like sharing that part of our journey is most important, in that 3 years ago, we did adopt and purchase CKLA for our grades K through 2, as well as Amplify in grades 6 through 8. And for us, it has been a wonderful, okay. Okay.
It happens. See,
right.
It's the real world, Penny. Keep going. You're doing great.
All right. Okay. So as I said, 3 years ago, we adopted CKLA foundational skills program, and began using it. And then last year, purchased and started using the knowledge portion. And what was so interesting about our journey is it's both qualitative and quantitative, in that by our second year last year of using CKLA foundational skills program, our teachers were telling us at the beginning of the year that they were seeing a difference in the students that were coming to them. And for example, first grade teachers were stopping us and saying, our kids this year look so different that are coming to us from kindergarten, in that they know their digraphs, they know their blends, they just know so much more about foundational reading, and they could see a difference. But we've also seen that with our data too, and have been very encouraged. And that was even during a COVID year that was happening, with the teachers being able to see a difference. But our data did tell a story last year, in that by the end of the year, our kids grew by 20% in kindergarten, as well as 20% in first grade with foundational skills. And that was just exceptional. And so, so validating to know that we were on the right path. And with the knowledge, the students' engagement is just soaring. The kids are so excited about knowledge learning, knowledge building, and it's impressive to see the vocabulary that they incorporate into their writing and their language, and just the whole total package has come together for us. We're continuing to grow, but alongside with the high quality material, we also had training. We were offered Reading 360 training in Tennessee, and we took advantage of that. And so that really coincided with our curriculum and caused teachers to stop and think about how foundational skills are taught and about the science in reading. And so I'll kind of just stop there, but we are on definitely a good path and continuing to grow.
Definitely. And hearing the changes in your data, it was powerful. So thank you for sharing that. That's extremely powerful. It is doable to hear that, especially after the unfinished learning that students experience with COVID. So thank you, Penny, for sharing that. I want to go over to Sandra, but I want to come back to your transition from DIBELS Next to DIBELS 8. There was a question about that. I want you to share that with us, as well as what was it like to go from paper pencil over to mCLASS. So I want to come back to those two questions that came to me. So thank you. And Sandra, share your district's journey there with balanced literacy to science of reading, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. It has been a long journey. It's been a great journey, but it wasn't easy. We had been a balanced literacy district ever since I came to the district, and they were very devout in their instruction and in their belief. They were supported with professionals, and it was not an easy shift. But we started out with instruction partners supporting us with professional development and mostly focusing on the ELA shifts. And that led teachers to discover themselves that learning was not accessible to all students, because we were teaching at their instructional level, not at their we were teaching at the individual level, not at their instructional level. Not everybody was getting grade level instruction or reading grade level text. So we started out with instruction partners, worked on the shifts, and then we started seeing a neighboring district, Jackson Madison County, was using CKLA. And through some Twitter articles that I had posted, because we had to take baby steps, this had to be done gently in order not to offend. And plus, you know, they're amazing staff. And so they thought they were doing everything they could to teach kids how to read. But we were only teaching those high kids how to read. We were leaving behind a majority of our students. And so we took one group who was interested in my Twitter articles to see CKLA. And then, of course, then the next group in that grade level said, hey, they say they're going to try. And I didn't push it at all. We just said, this is something we're going to try. And it just caught on. And kindergarten loved it so much. They talked to first grade talked to second grade. And then the next year was textbook adoption year. And I was a textbook reviewer for the Department of Education. And I absolutely fell in love with it. This is how I taught reading, and this is how I was taught to read. Decodable text is huge. And the fact that this is a comprehensive system has made all the difference in the world to us. This is the first time since I've been in education that everything goes together. The State Department supports the science of reading. The publisher supports science of reading. The intervention matches the instruction, which matches the tech program with Amplify Reading. And like I said, this is only our second year, so we don't have a great deal of data with the mCLASS. But again, I echo what Penny said. that teachers say, oh, I can see a huge difference in the way kids are ready to read in first grade. And that was with a COVID year. And so that's very exciting. And I can't wait to even see the second benchmark in January to see how they've grown.
Well, and something I'd like to address, both of you talked about how during COVID, I mean, you're seeing these results, the data that you're gathering, and I know that's not the experience of a lot of people across the country. When we see the data that has come in nationally, and Sandra, you privately had shared that what would we have done without that kind of high quality instruction during the COVID period? What would we, how would we have worked through that without having those resources? And I think you're seeing the results of that now. And I really, really appreciate the fact that you both brought up that our kids are coming to us in a different space now. They're coming to us with prepared in a much different way. You used a lot of words like devout, baby steps, gently, ease them into this. And I think I'd like you both to think about, as we come back at the end, advice for other people, advice for those folks on the call that tuned in today to hear about the inclusion of mCLASS into their literacy system, how to gather that data, how to use that data. But let's go back to those questions that Sarah wanted to address related to moving from one version of DIBELS and that process of moving folks forward with a change. And I think that goes to both of you, both districts, in terms of change. So Sarah, if you want to kind of elaborate on that initial question.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe starting from, like, if I was paper pencil, let's just talk about the modality first. If I'm using paper pencil, this is an assessment. I mean, this was an assessment I used at DIBELS 6.0, right? And then it shifted to DIBELS Next, also known as a cadence reading. And now the current research is the DIBELS 8th version. What was that shift like, Penny? I mean, there's change, there's learning. What was that like for your district?
In our district, we have school-based teams that do the assessment one-on-one, of course, and it was paper pencil for many years. And we liked the accessibility of the kids and having that one-on-one assessment. However, for Tennessee, we wanted to collect data on all our kids statewide, and it was a need to transfer to DIBELS 8th for that reason. So there was some hesitancy on the teachers, the coaches at the schools to change from paper pencil to digital, just because it was new to them. They had no idea what that looked like. So we did a lot of communication with them and groundwork to say, look at the material, look at the assessment, see how they are different, what you think. We will support you with the digital components. We will support you with buying iPads and so forth. And that's what we did. So a lot of communication up front, and then training with the Amplify trainer support on the process of how to assess using DIBELS 8th with the mCLASS. And we initially we set up an appointment with folks from Amplify just to talk through the whole process, again, to lend more support to the school-based team so they were comfortable with it. And they gave us a lot of guidance too. So after the training of the school-based coaches and so forth, we had that entire day for them to get familiar with it. And then they went back and trained their folks at their schools, the teachers and all the others that would be using it, the EL teachers, the SPED teachers, everyone included, so that everybody was really comfortable. And again, we bought iPads so that they would be able to do it very efficiently. And honestly, once the school-based team started assessing that way, they were quickly able to see how it was more efficient, and there were so many more benefits by using it that way. So all of it just kind of culminated in us going with DIBELS 8th, which was a need, and DIBELS 8th, they also found that that was a better assessment. It was improved as well. And so the whole process was validated by the coaches, by the trainers, by the school-based teams, in that they were able to see by using it what a benefit it was and how much better. So it kind of proved itself in that respect.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, change. I don't like change. Many of us don't like change, but I appreciated how you said the communication. You had time for your teams to be reviewing the assessments. And you could see the power and the difference in the new version of that DIBELS 8. And then also they experienced the efficiency, right, of that, collecting the data and the tools. And I hope we have some time, because I wanted to come back and talk about some of the benefits of that tool, and also the benefit of how it connects to your core instruction with that CKLA Connect, right? Core university year is always, that is driving the groups and the activities within benchmark and progress monitoring and mCLASS when you assess with DIBELS 8. Sandra, I want to talk to you about, you had a transition with intervention in your district. Could you share what life was like before that change, and what it was like to go through that intervention change, and how you held on to your staff? I felt like that was hard. That touched my heartstrings when you shared your story in our pre-call. If you could share that with the team here today.
Sure. The first year that we adopted CKLA, we did not purchase mCLASS or mCLASS intervention, so we were not using DIBELS. We have one lead teacher that does the lesson plans for all the assistants that work with the Tier 2 kids during those RTI times. And it was a really heavy lift for those teachers because they're educational assistants and they did not have all the training. We did provide professional development for them every year with what we were using, mostly Wilson. So it's still that same multi-sensory, but it was so heavy for them to read. And sometimes they were teaching things to students that they didn't understand themselves. And so with COVID, that became even a bigger problem, because the assistants were being pulled out to cover for teachers. So last minute we had someone new. Well, we just couldn't keep up, and assistants were like, they would rather go do lunch duty than to do a reading group, because they were just brokenhearted because it was so difficult and they weren't seeing kids grow. So I started talking to Miss Ann Patterson, our Amplify person, and she is just my person. I need anything and I go to Miss Ann, and she will send me to the right place if she doesn't do it herself. And I told her what was happening, and she said, let me set you up with Karen. We need to talk about mCLASS. It's beautiful. You do the assessment that you do already anyway, with whether it's STAR, CBMs, or DIBELS, and it actually creates your group. It creates a burst, which puts your students into the group that they need to be in according to their skill deficit. And it is so simple. It's almost like, could this really be what students need? I mean, I've got to see this first, because the simplicity of it is amazing, so that those teachers now are excited. And we even had one teacher who we had taken out because she was so miserable. And she's like, I really like this. And she said, don't ruin my reputation, because I'm known for not liking RTI. I now love RTI, but please don't tell anyone. I mean, it's amazing. It comes with all the word cards that you need. Your students are there, and it's so simple to follow. And it has just made all the difference in the world. And we do see growth. And teachers are seeing that in the classroom when they go back from the Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Yeah, so where change can be challenging, in your case, they openly embrace the change because of the environment and what was happening. And then the program itself, it is that easy, right? And it sells itself because of its lessons that are direct instruction, that are driven by data. And you're checking in with those students. So thank you for sharing that. And I love the secret of, I now love RTI. Yeah. That is wonderful. Karen, let me think, where are we at with, let's see here. I was going to look in the chat with some questions.
Well, and something I wanted to ask, I mean, going back, Penny, we're talking about intervention, we're talking about data and that process that we're going through. You know, in terms of your teachers have already embraced the teacher administered assessment. I think as we think about what we're doing, collecting that data and the importance of that aligning to skills. And I know you spoke with us earlier about the importance of teachers getting the data they need that aligns to the curriculum, that aligns to what they're actually, you know, teaching to get that data. Can you speak a little bit to that, about how your teachers view that data that they're getting in to help them, you know, guide instruction? And maybe Sandra, you can also speak to that, just that the wonderful data that they get to be able to make next steps, logical next steps related to the core instruction.
Yes, so we have our benchmarking 3 times a year with the assessment, the beginning of the year, middle of year, end of year. And that really does aid us as a district, as school-based teams, to have information up front in order to group students, to guide instruction. And the reporting that we get from the first benchmark, then teachers can use that to guide their instruction in their classrooms in the tier 1. We also have Amplify Reading, which is a great next step in connecting all of it together for continued reading within the tier 1 classroom, and that support as well. And then, of course, using that data to continue the tier 1 support with progress monitoring is really important. After the first benchmark, then teachers know which kids need more support, and we'll continue to work with them on through the high quality materials. We give a dedicated hour to the foundational skills curriculum, as well as a dedicated hour to knowledge. And through that, the teachers use the progress monitoring from DIBELS to see where the kids are, how they're progressing, and continue to monitor them as needed from benchmark to benchmark. And of course, as we've talked about, mCLASS groups the students for them for their tier 1, and it also allows us through our RTI teams with tier 2 to be able to have the kids grouped and guide their instruction in that as well.
That's great. And I think that ties into how, with Sandra using mCLASS intervention. So we've got the grouping mechanism that you're talking about with all of your students with that universal screening. And so you're getting all of your students grouped, whereas Sandra using mCLASS intervention is having certain students grouped. And so maybe you can speak a little bit to that, Sandra, about how that's working out with your students and teachers.
With mCLASS, we use only with the RTI students with the mCLASS intervention, and it does place those students into those specific skill groups, and it is so responsive to the change in their progress or lack of progress that it will even give you a note, like a flag that says, oh, Sandra, you may need to consider changing Karen to another group. It seems all the others have made progress. I mean, it literally spells it out. You don't have to interpret. All your data is in one place. It shows your little trend line, gives you the last 3 data points. It's just, and it's so responsive. To a fault almost in the beginning when we were using it, was like, wait, what happened? They're not in this group. It tells you everything you need to do and when you need to do it. And it's so easy to read. And I love that it goes with, like Penny said, the Amplify Reading, and it all gives you these great reports. And when it's all so aligned, it just makes all the difference in the world, because you're not teaching something that they already know. You know, it's time to move that student forward.
Well, and I think I would like to share my screen, if that's okay, Sarah.
Yeah, let's do it. We can show the difference between the two here. And let's just start. We could start with this slide. So Sandra's school is using mCLASS intervention and assessing with DIBELS 8. So here's just like a sample of a 10-day lesson set. So when students are benchmarked initially, the program will place them into groups. And then throughout their intervention time, the leader of the group, it doesn't have to be a teacher, by the way, will progress monitor, it will adjust the lessons here. But to Sandra's point, at the very top here, you'll see a 10-day lesson plan. It tells you they're 30 minutes long for intervention time. The 2 skills that this group of up to 6 students need are outlined here. All the lessons for the 10 days are here. And then there is a day built in for the group leader to progress monitor. So that is that very direct instruction specific to the 2 skills that the students need in that group. On the other side, Penny was talking about instruction groups that live within the assessment. And so Karen, let's hop over there.
Sure. Let me see if I can grab that. I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
All those tech things that have to happen. Thank you, Karen, for being the driver.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right screen. As to what we're going to share now relates to what Penny sees with her teachers, with all of the students. And let's see if I can get that going. Here we go. Let me start sharing that. Hold on one second.
There it is, Karen. Thank you.
Seeing that? You seeing
There
that
we go.
okay?
Yeah.
And so we're going to jump to, this is a screen that you see. So for those of you that are not familiar with mCLASS, when you're assessing, this is the screen that you see to get your whole class summary. Once you do that, and we can jump back and we can share that. We really want to go to the instruction tab, because once you assess and have those groups made, you can see them immediately. I get my groups. Move this. I get all of my students here, so I can look at grouping, I can look at students, and I can look at activities. Since we're talking about groups and getting those activities, this is what happens. You're going to all students. So I had a sample of 15 kids that you didn't necessarily see those. So those 15 students are grouped from low end skills to higher end skills. So you're going to get them grouped regardless of how they're performing. We want to support all of our kiddos, not just those that might need extra support. And so you've got different skills being addressed in that grouping. And once we pull that all activities or see the activities, I'm going to jump down and see, first I'm going to see some pedagogical considerations, language considerations, what students might need to work on. So it gives me as a teacher a lot of just information right away. I can mull over what I need to do, but then I can scroll to the bottom and see the observed patterns on that lowest level skill that they need to be working on. So here we're working on phonemic awareness, and it's related to our phonemic segmentation fluency assessment. And so here there are activities. I've got lots of activities that I can pull up. And Sarah mentioned earlier that CKLA Connect. So you notice right below those activities, this also is going to take me back to where in my core, I can be working on those areas of greatest need. And it really just depends. It depends on what kind of time I have. Do I want to pull different groups at different times and use some of these activities? Or do I want to go just straight to the core to be able to do that? It's really flexible for the teacher to make that decision.
Yeah, and Karen, Kristen had asked this question. Kristen, that is a prize-worthy question. And so it was like, does mCLASS itself as a tool, once I assess students with DIBELS 8, provide lessons for all tiers of students? And it's yes. So based off of the data that you're collecting here in the instruction feature, all my students, all tiers of them, most at risk to, we can see them here, how they're grouped. And you can see in this group 1, phonemic awareness 2 students, and there's their
Sarah, you just froze. I don't know if that was me or I've got internet.
I think it's Sarah.
Okay, so Sarah, if you can hear me, you just, as I think Sarah was saying, your students are grouped in the phonemic awareness group that you see here. We've got 2 students, and as we scroll down, you're going to see comprehension, a comprehension related group at the bottom here with 5 students that are performing at a higher level. One of the other things you can see is the students themselves and just pulling activities. If I want to just pull activities, I can go to pull activities. I can go by grade level, by that skill. If I want to look up decoding, I can look at decoding grade 2. It's going to give me a wide variety of very targeted, very specific and explicit activities to be able to use. One thing that Penny mentioned when we talk about grouping and when we talk about, benchmarking and then progress monitoring, you're going to update those recommendations. So those groupings are going to change. I mean, that's the goal, right? You're moving kids forward. As Sandra said, you're moving kids forward and it's helping you know exactly where to go next. It's a little different when we talk about this type of instruction. It's really kind of intervention as teachers determine the needs, and as the platform helps you, but then also with mCLASS intervention, the more intensive intervention with that 10-day lesson plan, if you've got folks that may not be, and as Sandra said, that may not have the same training, they can use those activities with ease and with confidence. And I think that's something we really want to build upon. Both of you, and I don't know, Sandra, I know Penny, you did mention Amplify Reading. So here is where you're going to see that Amplify Reading tab, as well as that intensive intervention tab. And so maybe this is a good time. Once you've got your groups and you've both done your assessing or grouping, what are my other kids doing? And so maybe you can each speak to how Amplify Reading is playing out in your classrooms and the impact it's having on students, and anything you'd like to share about how Amplify Reading is working with that. And I'll stop sharing.
We used it a little differently this year than we did last year. But we had so many absences last year with teacher assistants having to cover for teachers when kids were quarantined or just, because they had sick children. So a lot of times we weren't able to pull those tier 2 kids for RTI, but we felt very comfortable with them being in Amplify Reading, that they were still getting that differentiation that they needed during that intervention time, because it is personalized for that student and it's based on their baseline assessment. And so we used it with intervention, but we also used it with all of our kids. And we do that this year too, during tier 1, because, in tier 1 during RTI time, everybody either has a skill deficit or they need enrichment. One or the other, or standards deficit. And so that Amplify Reading can address all of those things. And even those kids who need enrichment can go above the grade level.
And we also are using Amplify Reading for all of our students because it is personalized. They all get about 20 to 30 minutes every day on using the Amplify Reading, because it does connect so well with the instruction.
That's right. And so as we think about Amplify Reading or mCLASS and the intervention and CKLA, all of those pieces of the literacy suite, the one thing that kind of keeps them together is that professional development that we provide for teachers. Also, Penny, I know you had a great sharing about the walkthroughs and the coaching that you've received to help teachers continue the momentum utilizing the pieces of the suite. So maybe Penny, you can speak to a bit of that coaching and how that has helped, with leadership walkthroughs and keeping the needle moving forward.
Yes, so support is so important at all levels, but especially at the teacher level. And so Tennessee has been really good to provide different grants that districts can participate in. And we have participated in several grants and networks. But we have been supporting teachers one way through coaching. We have a school-based coach at each school that actually goes in and works with teachers, but we've also helped all teachers through unit planning and lesson planning so that they can come together in PLCs each week and have that support. And then we've done a lot of training with our leaders using an instructional practice guide, an IPG. And that is based on best practice for reading. And so as a district, we have worked with district leaders, school leaders, and introduced to teachers what that instructional practice guide looks like and how that can look in instruction. And so we have been setting up walkthrough times to go through each school and go to K1 and 2 specifically classes and just spend about 15 minutes observing the instruction, and then have conversations with the principal about the instruction and what that looked like, and where that looks in the 3 core actions of the practice guide. And then the teacher can then, or the principal can then have a conversation with the teacher about the practices that they saw and making a suggestion about moving to the next level. And so through the walkthroughs, the systematic walkthroughs, the teachers know the importance of using the curriculum as it is intended for, especially for foundational skills, using that with integrity so that the research-based curriculum is actually being used and implemented correctly. And then last year we were gearing most of our IPGs and walkthroughs with the foundational skills. This year we've continued with the knowledge-based curriculum and doing the walkthroughs with a knowledge IPG. So again, it's very intended to support the teacher, to support the principals so that they can go forward with the instruction as intended and use the curriculum as intended as well. And it's felt very successful because the teachers get immediate feedback and know what a great next step is, and we're seeing the results with it.
That's great. And Sandra, do you have things to add to how professional development and how supporting teachers and leaders has really made an impact?
I just think that every resource provided from Amplify is excellence. Even the chat. I'm that type A person, and when I go there, I don't want you to tell me, oh yeah, that's in the teacher guide. Well, I know that, but I need to know where in the teacher guide, because I don't have time to spend on that right at this moment. Get on that chat, and I mean, you may have to go through 3 or 4 tabs to get there because they want to know exactly where to send you, but they're very responsive and it's very targeted, and they are all educators, which is amazing because they even understand the pedagogy that you're asking, if that's part of your question. And the professional development, ours was all done virtual, but it was excellence all the way around.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Sandra. I lost my Wi-Fi, so I'm back, everyone.
Oh.
I don't know what happened there, but I will put in a plug for Ed Support. You can reach them through the chat when you're live in our programs here at Amplify, but I'll put their email here. You have any pedagogical questions, that's what they're there for, and they are former teachers.
And I appreciate, Sandra, that you said they don't just say go to the teacher's guide. Right. You already know to go to the teacher's guide.
Right.
You want targeted, really specific. Teachers are busy. We know how busy teachers are, and we want to save them as much time as possible. And that's what really everything from mCLASS intervention to the lesson plans, all the grouping, all of those mechanisms are really always about trying to save teachers as much time as possible. Sarah and I wanted, as we talk about professional development, supporting teachers, we wanted to share some resources. And this really came to our attention, really, from Penny's discussion about the curriculum matters coming to and maybe you can speak a little bit to this. I will say, when you're on this website, when you scroll through, you're going to see Penny's picture right in the middle of the page, which was really nice to see.
Yes. Well, we were honored with Curriculum Matters tour, coming to our district and staying with one school, particularly for an entire day. They wanted to go in and see teachers teaching and students learning, and it was a wonderful day. They visited many K-2 classrooms, as well as teacher panels, student panels. They just talked to everyone in the school, and everyone was so excited to share the increase in student learning that had occurred. And they really did listen. They were very interested in sharing our story. So they've shared it out on Twitter and lots of blogs. They have highlighted some of that day. For instance, one kindergarten teacher was so excited about progress made with CKLA that she brought actual student writing to the panels to share, and that has gone viral over Twitter because so many teachers could actually see student writing and the results from kindergartners. Another EL teacher was excited to share how her students had gained so much in 1 year using CKLA and how it really leveled the playing field for them, that she just couldn't say enough about the growth in her kindergarten students, and that too has gone viral. So that was an excellent day, and we loved the tour and all of them spending the day with us and then sharing our story with the nation, actually.
Some more resources that we have. Some of you have asked. So here's one, Curriculum Matters. Additionally, if you haven't received a copy of, well, you can't really see it on my screen. Here we go, of the reading leagues. If you're working through that shift, no matter where you are, even if you're in that expert level, I love tools in my toolkit. Teacher people, we love these resources. You can get that Science of Reading Defining Guide from our partners at the Reading League. So more on that. And additionally, Amplify has the Science of Reading podcast. So if you haven't listened to those, check that out. Many folks are nationally going through letters training. There's a recent session on letters out of Louisiana, but also that connection to data. Assessments that are built like DIBELS 8 on that Science of Reading, the foundation there, and how that's impacting their students and what they're seeing. So if you haven't joined any of those resources, take advantage. Shannon is dropping them in the chat right now. Karen, was there one more resource?
There's one more resource, but before I jump to that resource, I chose this episode to share because if you are thinking about making that shift, and that's probably why you're here, because you wanted to hear from some fantastic educators that have experienced that. And so this episode with Dr. Doug Reeves was really a powerful episode with Susan talking about that. And the one phrase that he talked about was de-implementation. That really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't just keep piling things on. We have to really analyze what we're doing. And when we try to do something new, you cannot just add it in, because when you think about the medical field, and he really talked about that you don't know what's having the impact when you're just piling things on to add to a plate. And so that that before I shared the shift document, making the shift, I wanted to, that episode in particular, but we'd love to help you make that shift. As you heard from Sandra and Penny, it is a journey. And I think that may be, as Sarah, as we look at the chat, if there are questions that we want to address really before we get to that, I'd love to kind of leave with Sandra and Penny sharing any advice they have for people thinking about moving to mCLASS, thinking about, making the shift in whatever regard. So maybe if they have some words of wisdom that they could share before we take any last questions. I know we're running out of time.
I would just say that you need to read. You need to read, and do your research, because the district that I work with, when I went there, I was so impressed with those teachers. They are so dedicated and so passionate, but they were doing exactly what they had been taught to do. And when you know better, you do better. That's the whole Curriculum Matters, Science of Reading shift. They were doing everything well. but now we're doing it better because we have the right tools.
And I would totally agree with that. We have to start with high quality materials. And we have seen many instances in our district of the example of putting high quality materials in the hands of teachers who want to do well, want to see their students achieve, and it works. We've had, in the past, teachers have had to search for materials and just look for all of the things that they need to make kids successful, and they don't have to do that anymore. They have high quality materials. They have a reporting system that they can trust and that can guide their student instruction, and it truly works, and we are seeing the benefits. And so I would just encourage anyone to take a look at it, to do the research yourself, and then trust it as our teachers trusted us, and we trust the system, and it works.
Well, I appreciate both of you sharing those bits of advice, but I also want to give shout out to both of you. I mean, it's about leaders being able to lead folks to that direction as well, and you're supporting them in what they need. And so kudos to you for that, and kudos to you for sharing with the world today. I mean, that it's always a little vulnerable coming on and sharing your history and your journey. And so we really, really thank you for this wonderful conversation today. Sarah, I don't know if there are any questions we want to address before we sign off.
There
Just
are,
wanted
and
to
I,
say one more thing, if I could.
Mhm.
If you are unsure, go see someone that's doing it. That was the change with our people. 2 people wanted to go, so I took the whole team. And when they saw what was happening, they were like, "Our kids can't do that." And it was a very the district was a very poor district, the one that we first visited, and it was like, we can't do that. We want our kids to do this. It was just very eye-opening. And so if you're in question, go see someone that's doing it, and you will be a believer.
And if I could add one more thing as well, you can check out the Tennessee Department Best for All website. That has videos of teachers teaching skills lessons. And our district was fortunate to be part of that, making those videos. So check that out too. That's very convincing. It's Tennessee Department of Education Best for All website.
And we can try to put in that link. And I meant to say something, Penny. I wanted to see the kindergarten teacher writing. It went viral and I missed it, which is no surprise. But I would love to see that writing, because that really sells it for me too. Just seeing what is really possible for kiddos. And all of your words of wisdom have been great. Sarah, last words. Do we need to question?
There's a few questions I just want to clarify. mCLASS is our technology platform. DIBELS 8 is an assessment that sits on that. Within DIBELS 8, there's also instructional lessons for all students. There was a little confusion about that. We also offer a teacher-led intervention. mCLASS intervention also sits on that technology platform of mCLASS. And that's where interventionists, group leaders of interventions get very specific, direct instructional content that is based off of 2-leg literacy needs. So different types of instruction. So I think we can hand that over to Shannon to talk about, will you get the recording, how to follow up, and way to go for our folks who asked lots of good questions. And we'll be sending you this lovely Science of Reading t-shirt that Karen and I are sporting today. And honestly, thank you to our panelists for sharing your journey, and for those of you joining us that are in your journey. And thank you so much. Shannon, we'll pass it over to you.
Yes, thanks everybody. This was such an awesome panel. And I just want to say, I used to work closely with our software engineers on creating these programs. And so it really warms my heart to hear how they're being used in the real world. So I want to remind our listeners that everyone will be getting an email tomorrow with a link to the recording of this presentation, as well as a certificate of attendance. And we also have 2 more customer panel webinars to close out the year that you can attend by visiting and registering at amplify.com/SOR-everyone-fall 2022. Thank you again for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day.
And I think Carolyn
Bye,
has a
everyone.
question. Come to our next webinar, and I bet we'll be giving away another T-shirt for you to come.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
everyone. Have a wonderful week.